Hello, I am Michael Thompson, the Director of the Broader Impacts and Research Organization, if you are just now joining us for the second video. And welcome back if you have already watched the first video in the series. In this video, we will talk about the history and developments that led to the 1997 NSF BI criterion, and then we will turn our discussion on answering the question as to what is still the biggest reason, although usually not made explicit, as to why people have still had challenges with NSF broader impacts. And then how is this now being addressed? So welcome to the new faculty NSF BI workshop seminar series overview part 2 on the history of and why faculty have still been confused on NSF BI. And then how do we actually solve it? We're going to talk a little bit about the history of broader impacts. Before 1997, there were really 4 criteria that were involved. No matter what you might think that really broader impacts is really quite new. Broader impacts in some form has always been around, even specifically with NSF. What this is basically a discussion report of National Science Foundation meeting with the National Science Board and asking, do these 4 criteria make sense? Do we need to streamline the process? What do all these criteria look like? And it started in 1981 and it went till about 1997 until you actually came up with the term broader impacts. The first 2 dealt with research performance competence and intrinsic merit of research. And really what that is a combination of the intellectual merit and a couple of added different things. When we begin to think about the utility or relevance of research and the effect of infrastructure on science and engineering, those pieces were really the precursors to what we now call broader impacts. Now, when we just take a small little look at this, when we talk about the utility or relevance of research, it's the likelihood that the research can contribute to the achievement of a goal that is extrinsic or in addition to that of the research itself, and thereby serves as a basis for new or improved technology or assists in the solution of societal problems. The effect on infrastructure dealt with understanding or improvement of quality and distribution or effectiveness of scientific and engineering issues or education or manpower base. Those 2 things, and the interesting thing about this is that there's lots of questions about broader impacts currently. When you look through this document, they actually did an evaluation on who understood the first 2 criteria compared to the last 2 criteria. The last 2 criteria were woefully really misunderstood. And actually, a lot of faculty did not pay attention to them. Now think about how this translates into now moving into these broader impacts criterion as we know now. So if we go to the National Science Foundation review criteria, we can begin to talk and do just a little bit of comparison. When we look at the National Science Foundation current merit review principles and criteria, we can see what broader impacts has become, which broader impacts is defined as encompasses the potential to benefit society and contribute to the achievement of specific desired societal outcomes. You can see language that are coming from the last 2 of the 4 old criteria that begin to talk about broader impacts may be accomplished through the research itself, the activities that are directly related to specific research projects, and activities that are supported by or complementary to the project. And then you can begin to look at, even through this document, there are certain questions that begin to align. And there's really 4 questions. To what extent are proposed activities suggest to explore creative, original, or potentially transformative concept? Is your broader impacts well reasoned, well organized? How well qualified is the individual or team to conduct the broader impact activities? Are there adequate resources available? And then what they do is they begin to talk about currently, okay, what are basically the 9 outcomes that they're looking to achieve. And we can talk about these as being more of the long-term sustainable positive impacts that NSF wants to achieve, and we'll get a little bit more into that. By 2010, there was something that was called the American Competes Act. And this is after, in 1997, broader impacts had exchanged the infrastructure and utility criteria, where in 2010, the American Competes Act mandated broader impacts and said that institutes of higher education should help PI support achieving the broader impacts criteria. In 2011, the National Science Board came back and said that we're going to keep broader impacts, and definitely institutes of higher education should help to provide support. Now, if we step back a little bit about in time, in 1997, this was implemented, it went on. There was a lot of confusion about broader impacts. In fact, you could see that in certain articles, certain journals, and it wasn't really until I would say 2011, 2012 that there really began to had a lot of people starting to understand a little bit more about NSF broader impacts. So by 2012, 2013, there was National Alliance for Broader Impacts that was established. Then there was 3 other broader impacts offices that were developed, and they specifically focused on NSF. And then in 2014, there was our organization, which focused on NSF, but then also focused on the entire institution. We've went through some of the criterion information really quickly, but then the question is that make it any clearer? Because even if we begin to look at understanding how to do NSF broader impacts, that is not the same thing as understanding broader impact. Okay, and we're going to unpack this in just a little bit. There are still some big problems for faculty. You've probably all had them, saying what is broader impacts, how do I understand it, and what you're really asking, and I will try to show you this, is what is a conceptual theoretical framework in which can help me guide to figure out how to do NSF broader impacts. If you think about it, each one of you are either using some models, using some theories, using some laws to help you figure out where you're going and advance in your field. Let's say that you stop using them and still try to do what you're doing. How well would it work? Anyone? Would it work well? No, right? So you can always do a series of the activities, but if you don't have a conceptual or theoretical framework in which all of you do, outside of just understanding how to do the actual techniques, it's not going to get you anywhere. This is the same issue that as faculty we are having. Okay? And so what we want to do is help you to develop that conceptual theoretical framework just enough so that then you can build on your NSF broader impacts and be able to expand on that. I reiterate and say understanding broader impacts is not exactly the same thing as understanding how to do NSF broader impacts. Because you could do an activity all day long, as you all know. But if you don't have a conceptual or theoretical framework to help guide you through what you're doing, it's pointless. It's akin to, for me, it's akin to putting chemicals together and hoping for the best. That's exactly what we're looking at. So when faculty begin to ask, or when you begin to say, I don't understand broader impacts, there's a piece that says, well, what is the conceptual theoretical framework to help me guide me through what I need to do? We're not going to go through every single detail, and we're not going to cover all of this because this is the broader impacts conceptual framework, but we want to give you just enough pieces, just the basic pieces that are going to help you to figure out how to move forward in your broader impacts. And you have all of these slides that you're seeing, you have them in your folder. To help begin to kind of formulate your ideas about broader impacts in general first before then we get to very much the meat of dealing with NSF. We're going to have you pull out the Broader Impacts Debunking the 20 Major Myths About Broader Impacts document. Just take 5 minutes and take a read through. Take some notes, and then we're going to come back and then we're going to really start getting into basically looking at the structures for broader impacts so that we can move forward with the NSF specific broader impacts.